everyone, welcome to Let's Be Real. This is Brina here, bringing you another episode of the full analysis video. And this time round, I will be bringing you to Jurong area, District 22, and I will be sharing with you on Sora. Okay, as you can see the visual behind me, this is the impression of how Sora will look like. There are actually 4 blocks, 2 shorter blocks over here, 12 story, and 2 taller blocks, which is right above me, 20th story. And this project actually reminds me a lot of Ample Park in the east. Okay, it is brought to you by Singhai E and KSH Holding, and it was actually an en-bloc project, formerly known as Parkview Mansion, which I will touch on a little bit later. Okay, so this is actually next up is the location map of Sora. Okay, let me show you where Sora is. Sora is basically over here. We are actually overlooking the 3rd National Garden, which is the Jurong Lake Garden area. Okay, so it's very, very big, very, very beautiful lake view. On top of here, I think in this whole belt, there will be another 2 condos, one of which was launched last year, Lakeside Garden, which we will do a little bit of comparison to later in my slides as well. So our nearest MRT is actually over here, Lakeside MRT. In fact, it's actually only about 4 bus stops to Lakeside MRT. And then this is actually the Chinese Garden area, and this is the Jurong East MRT. Alright, so now that we get our orientation right, let me show you another top-down view. Okay, so basically this is where Sora is, overlooking the Jurong Lake Garden area, where you get the very, very beautiful lake view. Okay, and on my right side, which is here, is actually an impression of how the top rooftop area will look like, where you host your friends and families and things like that. You are actually looking at the Jurong Lake Garden. Alright, so this is another impression of how how Sora will be like. So this is the taller block, this is the shorter block, overlooking the Japanese Garden, Jurong Lake Garden. On the opposite spectrum, you actually get your Jurong East MRT. The international business parks are all over there as well. So like I mentioned, it's about 4 bus stops to Lakeside MRT. Okay, so now let's dive further into Sora. Sora has about 440 units in the District 22, ranging from 1+ study all the way to 5 bedder. And in today's episode, we will be diving right into every different bedder type, bring you more information of each layout. Alright, so another interesting and attractive point of Sora is actually this whole area here. The whole frontage area is 300 meters long. Very, very, very big, overlooking the 3rd National Garden, which is Jurong Lake Garden. Just to highlight to you before we dive in further, most of the unit that is overlooking all this Jurong Lake Garden are the bigger bedder type, ranging from 2+ study all the way to 5 bedder. Okay? So next one is actually the site map of Sora. So I've divided into different portions. Okay, the first level you will actually get like kids pool, family pool, gym, tennis court. Okay, in the middle it's quite interesting. You actually have your games room, mini theater, and karaoke. Let me just tell you this. Usually for karaoke, games room, I would reckon that it's more for bigger project, like those 1,000 unit, 800 over unit. But this is quite rare because Sora only has 440 units, but they actually have like spa house, games room, mini theater, putting green, which is really interesting. They also have tennis court. So for all tennis players out there, good for you guys, because not all condos actually got tennis court these days. So there is also a bigger pool, which is the Serenity Pool with the library, barbecue pavilion, pits, camping area, pets corner, bicycle park. Pets corner is very important. Actually, recently I went to a project in the east, then I realized that the whole condo, right, they don't encourage any for you to bring the pets down, for a walk. You actually have to bring them to like maybe East Coast Park. So this is one very important thing, pets corner. Okay, and then the sky area, which is all the rooftop, you actually get your sky lounges, boxing area, which is really rare. I know Florence Residences has a boxing area, but this one is actually in the sky. Social pet, for you guys to bring your friends along to hang out. Over here you have your sky bed. I'm just highlighting a little bit more of the interesting features. There's actually way more features than this, yeah? There is also a sky bar, sky dining, even a Tai Chi deck. Maybe your parents want to go over there for some Tai Chi session, which is really interesting in Sora. Like I mentioned, the shorter block is actually up to level 12, and the taller blocks is up to level 20, okay? Okay, so this whole area is what I'll be going through with you shortly. Basically, they are the bigger unit side facing the lake view area, the 3rd National Garden. And of course, this side, where will you be facing? You'll be facing, okay, not just Yanqing Road, but further behind is actually some of the HDB blocks and all. Okay, but it's actually quite a big distance away already. So this is the elevation chart showing you again we range from 1 plus study all the way to 5 bedder, but this is actually the more interesting one. Just to share with you, for 1 bedder is actually, we don't really have that much units. We only have 36 units of them, 8.18%. Okay, for the 4 and 5 bedder, again, it's very rare. We only have 18 units of each type. Alright, so for 1 bedder is only 2 stacks. And for 4 bedder, only 1 stack, and 5 bedder, only 1 stack. Of course, the 4 and 5, definitely you get the full-on lake facing. Okay, so now, without further ado, let's go into 1 plus study. So 1 plus study, we don't really have that many units. We only have 36 units of them. 2 stacks, stack 28 and stack 13. And these are the ones that are facing the Yuanqing Road. And then further on, you're actually facing the HDB blocks. Okay, so now let's look at the layout. In terms of layout, there are only 36 units. That's why there's only one particular layout, which is here. 538 square feet. Non-PPVC, I got to highlight this is because previously I touched on en bloc, right? Because this is the en bloc, that's why it's not PPVC view. In a way that you can actually construct and reconfigure quite a lot of things, because if you want to hack certain wall, you can have the flexibility to do that. If you want to raise certain wall, you can also have the flexibility to do that. So I will get into more detail on this. So this layout is actually very, very good for own stay, because why? You actually have a very, very big master room. Very smart that the study is actually located in the master room, which is quite rare, because most of the time the study is actually tucked at, right at the toilet. This area is quite awkward. Is this room that you want to use it as a study room? You can. If not, you don't really know what to use it as, maybe a storeroom. But this area is actually very smart, because why? One thing is you can actually build up a bifold door over here. So if at night, for example, if you want to work or you want to play some games and things like that, and your spouse is maybe sleeping, you can actually enclose this whole area. You can do your work or play your game over there, and if you want to go to the toilet, you can actually exit from the balcony door. So there is actually a sliding door and a balcony door connecting to your study, which is very, very smart. So for own stay, I think this will be perfect, because sometimes you don't need to have a study area, but you want to have like maybe a very, very big master bedroom whereby you can put your maybe massage chair, your baby cot, and things like that. And this layout would allow you to do that, because most of the 1 bedder these days, if you see outside 1 plus study, the rooms are really, really very small. So this gives you the flexibility, right? So it's very good for own stay. But what if you are buying to rent it out? Does it make sense? Then let me tell you that you have another flexibility of creating another room, which is here. Okay, so this can be 1 room, and then this can be another room. So you have the flexibility of a creation to a 2-bed 1 bath, which is actually missing in Sora. Sora, you only have 1 plus study, and then the next jump is straight away a 2-bed 2 bath. So for this layout, you can actually do this. You can actually create a 2-bed 1 bath. Okay, so next, let me share with you why create a 2-bed 1 bath. Let's go to rental. Okay, let's take a case study over here, Lake Grande. A 5-year-old condo is not very old for rental. Let's look at here. These are the 1 bedder, and this is actually the 1 plus study. As you can see, the study room is actually over here. This is what I mentioned to you, like most of the time study, is segregated from the master bedroom. So there is no, it's not possible for you to, combine this whole thing into one, which is why Sora is actually very rare. But okay, most important thing is looking at this 1 bedder and 1 plus study, what I want you to see is actually the average rental in the area. As you can tell, is pretty much similar. In fact, the average rent from 1 plus study somehow is a little bit lower than 1 bedder in this particular case study. Okay, so as you can see, if you buy in a 1 bedder, maybe the quantum will be lesser, but your rental is about the same price as maybe a 1 plus study. Your quantum might be a little bit higher. In a way, this means that 1 plus study rental yield might be a little bit weaker than the 1 bedder. But in Sora, what you can do with this layout is that you can actually, over here, you see, it's already created. You can create another bedroom, and you can create another huge bedroom, or you can even segregate this area as well. So if we are looking at this whole area like Lake Grande, the average rental for a 2 compact is around 4,200. It straight away elevate your rental from a 3,000 plus all the way to crossing the 4,000 mark to a 4,002. So this is something that you can do, particularly in Sora, which makes it really, really attractive. Now let's look at the supply of District 22. Okay, before we get there, let me show you District 21 supply first. District 21 is actually this small dot over here as compared to District 22, which is what I'm drawing right now. So it's very small area as compared to District 22. The current supply of one bedder in District 22 only has about 966 units. If you think this is a lot, come to think of it, some project itself, condo itself, already has more than 1,000 units. By comparison, this is not a lot. And for 1+ study, there are only about 342 units. Alright, and of which currently for sale, there are only 32 units in District 21 for sale. Okay, and now let's compare it with District 22. District 22 naturally is one of the higher rental yield market in Singapore, probably due to number one, the very big land plot where there is a lot of like companies and industries in this whole district area. Look at this, the total approximate number of one bedder and 1+ study adds up to only 553 units, of which for 1+ study, only 93 units, which is really rare. And currently available for sale for 1+ study, there are only 7 units. Come to think of it, if you are an owner in District 22, you own a 1+ study or one bedder, and every month you are collecting a very good rental, the rental market is very strong there, you don't really find the need to sell. And hence, maybe this is the reason why there are actually not many markets available, not many units available in the market. Okay? So now, let's look at non-harmonization. Again, because we are en bloc, so this is the project that is a little bit rare. Moving forward, most of the project plot is going to be harmonized already. So this is the non-harmonization plot, whereby your top floor, you actually get this additional void area. So if you are that kind of owner that you want to do your own loft and things like that, this will be a perfect time for you to go in, because in the future, it's going to get more and more rare. So now let's move into our next topic, which is pricing strategy. This one is actually very interesting and can be a little bit complicated to understand. For pricing strategy, right, we actually took out Lake Garden Residences as a comparison. And why Lake Garden Residences is because number one, they are actually launched just last year, pretty close timeline to Sora. Number two, their characteristic is pretty much the same. The bigger bedder type, they are all facing the Jurong Lake Garden. The smaller bedder type, they are actually facing the HDB, which is what Sora is right now as well. So we'll be taking two stacks for comparison. One is stack 3 over here, which is the one bedder, and stack 8, which is facing the lake, and this is the 4 bedder. Alright, why we take one bedder and 4 bedder as a comparison, you might ask. Okay, it's quite special and unique because most of the time for other projects, right, most of the 1 bedder PSF is actually higher than the 4 bedder PSF. This only makes sense because for 4 bedder, most of the time the size wise is much bigger. If the PSF it is still as high or in fact higher than 1 bedder, the quantum will be much crazier. But this one is a bit unique because 1 bedder is facing HDB, whereas the 4 bedder is facing lakeside. That's why you actually get statistics like this. Ta-da! Okay, maybe you cannot see. Okay, so basically over here, I divide into 3 different tiers. Lower floor, which is here, mid floor over here, and this is actually high floor. And you can see from here, right, if you're looking at the lower floor, 1 bedder PSF, is in fact lower than the 0208, which is the low floor for 4 bedder, which is very unique. And in fact, the price gap between these two is 5.5%. That is a very big gap. Meaning to say that if you're buying into a 1 bedder, HDB facing lower floor, you are actually looking at a 5.5% gap. Okay, for the mid floor wise, okay, then this time round, the 1 bedder is slightly more expensive, about 0.8% more expensive. And for the higher floor, okay, this time round, the HDB facing is still cheaper, which is quite unique. It's 0.7% cheaper. So what I'm trying to say here is if on that day of balloting, if you are looking at a 1 bedder, okay, and you are looking and the price gap for the lower floor, right, is 5.5% and higher, meaning to say that the HDB side is actually much lower PSF, then I think it's a very safe entry point for you to go into. Okay, for the mid floor level, if you are looking at maybe 1%, that sort of range, to lesser than 0.8% negative, then I think it's a very good point to go into. Same as the top floor, the higher floor maybe. If let's say you are looking at the range that it's maybe 0.7% to maybe about 1 or 2% in terms of price gap, meaning to say the 1 bedder is lower PSF, I think it's a very safe point for you to go in. Okay, so this is if let's say the pricing strategy is very similar to Lake Garden, then we can use this as an example. Okay, so now we get to selection. Okay, in terms of selection for one bedder, my suggested stack would be stack 28. Reason is because this is the entrance area and stack 28 is slightly further away, because stack 28 and 13, honestly 36 units, if you can grab any, I think it's good enough. Okay, but if you have the choice to choose, I would go for the stack 28 and lower floor. And lower floor is if, let's say, the pricing strategy is very similar to Lake Garden residences and the lower floor price gap is such big gap, like 5.5. In fact, if it's more than 5.5, then it will be a very, very good positioning for you to go into, because like what I mentioned, for one bedder, unfortunately most of the time PSF is higher, but for this case, if it's lower and that wide of the difference, I think you can actually look into a lower flooring of this stack 28. Okay, so now let's move on to two-bedder. Like what I mentioned earlier on, for our two-bedder stack, we only have 2 bed, 2 bath, and then 2 plus study. We don't have the 2 compact, which is the 2 bed, 1 bath, unless you alter it from the 1 plus study. Alright, so for two-bedder wise, basically there is actually 4 blocks of it. It's actually over here, stack 21, stack 20, stack 7, and stack 6. And all 4 blocks are actually facing HDB. Okay, they actually have 2 different sizes. This 2 is the smaller one, which is 646 square feet, stack 6 and stack 8, all the way to level stack 6 and stack 7, sorry, all the way to level 12. And then you have stack 21 and stack 20, all the way to level 20. Okay, so now let's look at layout of two-bedder. Okay, so once we dive into two-bedder, there are actually only 60 units and we actually have 2 different layouts. Over here, what you can see is actually a dumbbell layout. Dumbbell layout is a very unique layout type. Some people really like it, some people don't. Why they like it is because over here, this is what we call a traditional layout. Traditional layout usually have this extra corridor space. So some people, they don't like the corridor space because they want to space save. They like the whole space saving concept, so usually they will go with the dumbbell layout. Some people don't like it because it's not so private. The moment you walk in from the main door, you actually see the whole house already. So it's really personal, up to you on your preference. So over in Sora two-bedder, you have the choice to choose a dumbbell or a traditional layout. So let's dive into the layout. Why I like this layout is because for kitchen wise, right, it's very rarely for two-bedder for you to see additional window over here. Master bathroom also, you have the window to ventilate out. The only part is here, the second bathroom, you don't have the window. So I think this is quite standard, dumbbell layout. And then moving forth to the traditional layout, this is better because I feel that the second bathroom, you actually have the window. The master bathroom, you also have window. And the kitchen also have window. And a lot of time, if you are buying it for own stay, most of the time you prefer this kind of layout whereby the moment you enter, your kitchen is here, dining is here, living is here, and the rooms are all tucked at one side with more privacy. So this is usually what most own stay people would prefer. Okay, so next, let's dive into the estimated price. Okay, so my preferred layout for this project is actually, for this two-bedder, is actually this traditional layout. And why? It's because next time when you are going to sell already, you actually have a wider range of buyers, because people that are buying for own stay, most of the time they actually prefer this layout. People that are buying in as investors, sometimes they will also think that, oh, after investing for a few years, maybe I want to move back, and stay, and they will also choose this kind of layout. And sometimes maybe by then, it's in the resale market, not everyone is selling. Maybe don't have that kind of like dumbbell layout they are selling. People will still fall into this kind of layout. So you have a wider range. And let's look at it. Okay, for this is called B2. So for B2 wise, it's only 21 square feet bigger than B1. So if let's say we take an example of 2,000 PSF, we are looking at about 42,000 higher. Okay, of a price premium, and this price premium is only at about 3.25%. If paying 3.25% will actually garner you a wider range of buyer next time when you sell it, why not, right? So if you have a little bit more budget, I think it's wiser for you to actually look into this B2 layout. Okay, before we dive into our selection, let's look at rental in this area. Okay, let's take a case study of Lake Grande, same 5 years old, not too old of a project, rental comparison. So let's look at the two-bedder over here and the 2 plus study over here. And the reason why I bring you to this attention is because let's look at it. For the two-bedder, right, the average rental in the market is about 4,500. For a 721 square feet, much bigger two-bedder, you are looking at 4,720. And for a very big unit, 818 square feet, 2 plus study, you are also looking at a typical price range, similar price range of 4,800. What I'm trying to derive here is usually for the 1 bedder plus 1 plus study, most of the time rental will be around the same. For the 2 bedder plus 2 plus study, in terms of rental, it's also pretty much similar, even though the size itself is so much bigger. So is it really wise to buy into a 2 bed plus study? Can buy or not? Which is a topic that I'll cover shortly later. Let's look at another case study, Caspian, also in District 22. This is a much older project, 12 years old. As you can tell also, for the 2-bedder, you're looking at about 4,600 average rental per month. And for a 2-bedder plus study, 4,700. Actually, the difference is really not a lot between a 2-bedder and a 2 plus study. So my question is, does it mean 2 plus study cannot buy, right? For Sora. But which I will touch on later at the 2 plus study portion. But this is trying to tell you that actually if you buy into a 2-bedder, the rental is actually very, very attractive as compared to 2 plus study. So now let's look at the pricing strategy again. Again, we will be taking Lake Garden residences as a comparison. This time round, we'll be taking Stack 4, which is HDB facing, and Stack 8, which is Lake Garden facing. Okay? So looking at this again, we are dividing into a low floor, mid floor, and high floor. Okay, you can see that, wow, the low floor difference is really huge, meaning to say that the 2-bedder lower floor that is HDB facing is much lesser than the 4-bedder which is lakeside facing. In fact, the price gap is about 9.4%. Alright, for 10th floor, which is the middle floor comparison, we are looking at a 3.7% lower for a 2-bedder. And for 17th floor, which is the higher floor, you're looking at about 5.1% lower. So meaning to say that if you're looking at a low floor and on the day of launch, Sora price is maybe around 9% to way higher, maybe 10%, 11% kind of price gap. It's actually very safe for you to look into a lower price range for the 2-bedder. Lower floor for the 2-bedder. For the mid floor, if let's say the range is about maybe 3% to about 5% kind of difference, it is safe for you to actually enter into the mid floor HDB facing for 2-bedder. And if you're looking at a higher floor, which is maybe level 17, level 16, this kind of floor, if let's say the price gap is between 5% and higher, then it's very safe for you to enter the 2-bedder HDB facing. Okay, so in summation, what is my selection for 2-bedder? My selection for 2-bedder, in fact, will be the traditional layout one, and it's the low and higher floor. Meaning to say that looking at this, if let's say this is only if let's say Sora pricing strategy is very similar to Lake Garden residences, then I will be looking at this lower floor and also the higher floor, because in terms of price gap, it's actually very big. The bigger the price gap, the better it is, right? So you're buying in lower. So I'll be choosing Stack 21, which is the traditional layout one, at a lower floor or the higher floor. Okay, why I choose the traditional layout one is basically based on the wide range of buyers that will be coming in the resale market itself. Alright, so now let's dive into 2 plus study. Okay, so 2 plus study, can buy or cannot buy, because just now when I did the comparison of rental, you can see that actually it makes more sense for you to buy into 2-bedder, right? Because 2-bedder rental and 2 plus study is about the same. Then can I still buy 2 plus study? But you have to remember that some of these projects that we are doing a comparison with, they don't really have this kind of lake view or impressive view, which I will touch on shortly. So Sora 2 plus study still can buy. Okay, let me show you why. Okay, so for 2 plus study, as you can see, these are all highlighted by me over here. Okay, these are all lake facing. So 2 plus study, you no longer have any that is HDB facing. All of them are actually lake facing. They only have 2 different kind of layout. I actually separate them by the red color and the yellow color. So these are a little bit more unique one, but personally I don't really quite prefer, because they are actually tucked a little bit behind. Some of their view in the balcony might be a bit blocked over here and over here. Okay, but just take note that they are all lake facing. So now let's dive into it. 138 units of 2 plus study. Okay, so they are exactly the same size for both different layout, B3S and B4S, 732 square feet. Okay, so these are the 2 units just now when I mentioned, right, is the yellow color one, which is slightly a little bit blocked. Okay, so now I'm going to compare side by side in terms of their layout. So in terms of layout, right, generally I actually prefer this layout. I will tell you why. Okay, so the moment you come in, kitchen is the same. Toilet, unfortunately, you don't have window. Alright, In fact, the two-bedder just now got window. Okay, so this is the cons lah. Okay, every layout also has their own pros and cons. So good thing is you actually have a very big room over here. Same thing, the study is actually incorporated into the master room, which is like what I mentioned in 1+ study. You have the liberty to enclose over here, do a sliding door, open up to have a bigger master room. Okay, so similarly, this one you also have the same kind of concept. Okay, for bedroom 2, actually they look about the same. The only difference is more of the balcony and positioning, and also the aircon latch positioning. Why I prefer this is because the moment you come out here, right, the living room, you open the balcony, you straight away see the view, which is the lake view, and you actually have the full lake view. Of course, the facing here might not be nice because you are looking over to the aircon latch area, but for this one, the balcony, what I understand is this balcony and this balcony is about the same size. One is more elongated, this one is just better in terms of space planning. But this one over here, you actually have the aircon latch here, right? So aircon latch here, you can see that there's this window here, meaning to say that the window likely is going to be half height. So you are technically buying a 2+ study because of the view, but your view will be cut short by almost 1/4 already. So that's why I feel that if let's say you're buying into a view, I think this will be a more ideal unit, even though, like, you know, in terms of size they are exactly the same, but layout is a little bit different. This one, it might be a bit darker. Right? Having said that, of course, 2+ study with the incorporation of this study over here is definitely better for owner-owned stay as well. So between these two, just because this is darker, alright, this is also slightly blocked, you know, in the balcony area, I would actually go for this layout. Okay, so before we dive into the lake view, let me show you one analysis that I dig out for District 15 for another client previously. So this is seaside residences. So there is actually 2 facing for this project over here. One is actually the Victoria School facing, so you still get a bit of an unblocked school kind of facing. The other one, of course, you actually get the whole East Coast Park and the sea view facing. Okay, so it's in District 15, TOP 2021, it's relatively young, only 3 years, 841 units. So today we will be viewing 2 different stacks. One is stack 03, which is the seaside facing. The other stack is stack 14, which is the school facing, and these are the 2 bedders. So from here, right, ta-da, over here you can see this is a very, very beautiful sea facing. You can see the sea view and all, very, very unique. And this one, honestly, is not that bad because this one is actually the school facing. You still get a bit of an unblocked view, right? So looking at the price difference, let's see, 1103 and 1814. 1103 is actually facing the sea view, much lower as compared to level 18 ma. A lot of people tell me the higher you go, the more expensive it is, but really, is it this case or not? Let's look at 1103, right? The profit itself, we are looking at the same time period that you bought on and a similar time period where you sell. So you are looking at a 495,000 roughly the profit. As compared to maybe 18th floor, which is maybe facing the school view, you are looking at, wow, 279, almost half. That is lower. So higher floor, number one, doesn't really, you know, profit you any higher. And in fact, good views really plays a very important role, because in Singapore we are already quite cramped. We don't really have a lot of like unit that is sea view or a lot of unit that is lake view. And a lot of time when people want to buy into, like for example, even Lake Garden Residences, you call yourself as Lake Garden Residences, and you want to buy into a unit that is facing lake. You don't want to buy into Lake Garden Residences a unit that is facing, I mean, if you can, like facing HDB, you get what I mean? So it's the same kind of concept over here. So if you're asking me, 2+ study can buy or not? Can buy. If let's say you have the budget that can allocate to it between a 2-bedder and a 2+ study, why not stretch a little bit further to go for 2+ study, and you have the lake view. And in the future, you will have even wider range of buyers, because most of the buyers, when they come in, they will be captivated by the lake view itself. And this is actually a very solid analysis that you can use as an example. Of course, this is sea view. You can actually see that even lower floor is actually earning a much better profit than the higher floor one. So this is just a rough example. So now we'll be looking at the pricing strategy of 2-bed+ study. Okay, so same thing, we'll be using Lake Garden Residences as an example, but this time round we'll be looking at stack 4 over here, which is facing HDB, and also stack 16 facing the lake facing. Okay, this time round it's a little bit different because we were looking at as low of a price gap as possible. So looking at this, higher floor wise, right, you are looking at a 0.35% price gap only, meaning to say that this unit over here, 1716 for 2 plus study, facing the lake view is only 0.35%, slightly more than 1704, and you actually do get a lake view. So in this kind, if let's say this kind of price difference is the same as compared to Sora, I would totally say go for this. Okay, but you look at the lower floor one, 0204 plus 0216. The price difference is actually 4.67, meaning to say that if you are buying into a lake facing but lower floor, you are actually paying so much more. So if let's say this is the exact situation as applied to Sora, I would go for this unit. Okay, so now let's go to our selection. Selection wise, I will actually choose just now, like what I mentioned, the one with the more prim and proper balcony. If I were to go back, it will be this facing over here. Okay, stack 2 and stack 11. Because stack 2 and stack 11, if you see over here, is actually a little bit more set in, okay, as compared to the rest, which is more frontal facing. And this one, maybe in terms of PSF, we think it might be slightly cheaper, and you actually get a better kind of layout because the balcony is the full balcony range, right, as compared to this one, which is cut half already, and it might be darker. So our preferred layout would be that, and based on the pricing strategy itself, is because since you are already looking at the lake view, it will be better if you go for a higher level since the price difference is much lesser. But again, this is if let's say the pricing strategy is similar to Lake Garden residences. Okay, so suggested stack 2 and 11, higher floor. So now let's dive into 3 and 3 plus study. So we will lump them up together. So this time round, like I mentioned to you, all the bigger unit types, they are actually all facing the lake side. So we have C1 all the way to C5S, okay? So like I mentioned over here, this is the shorter block, and this is the higher block, and this is actually the shorter block. Okay, so now let's dive into layout. First and foremost, we look at the 3-bedder deluxe and the 3-bedder premium. Okay, and the difference of it. So this is C1 and C2, if you can see over here. C1 is actually much smaller, 936 square feet over here. 22 units of this only. Okay, so maybe, you know, every floor plan, like I mentioned to you, there's pros and cons. Maybe I'll just highlight to you some of the pros and cons for this bedder type. Okay, so first and foremost, if you are looking at a more compact 3-bedder, maybe it's just for a couple with a dog, or a couple with a kid and things like that, this might be actually a very good layout for you. The moment you enter here, the downside is actually the kitchen is a little bit smaller without any window, but the good point is actually this white color panel that you see here is actually a transparent glass, allowing more lights to come in from the balcony side and enlarging the whole kitchen concept. And another one is actually the flexi over here. This flexi room is actually very interesting because, like I mentioned, it's non-PPVC, right? So if you want, you can actually remove this. You can actually do it into a very big kitchen or open concept kitchen with island space and all. There's a lot of different concepts that you can play with this. In fact, you can remove and have an even bigger dining space. You can do it as well. Okay, and the very interesting feature is actually the wardrobe is actually tucked at one side. So if you realize that you're standing at the corridor looking in, you won't be able to see a wardrobe over here, which is what you will see for most projects. But this project is actually tucked in bigger, and your master room, actually you have a lot of space. So I got to say that for 3-bedder deluxe, this master bedroom is actually very big. In fact, it's almost, I think it's the identical same size as your 3-bed premium. Yeah, so in a sense that master bedroom is actually very good. Kitchen, you actually have this extra window for the lights to penetrate through. Flexi room, you have the flexibility to remove it, change it to a study room, or in fact just create a bigger kitchen. So these are the very, very good pointers of this bedder type. Then what's the down point, right? The down part. Down part is maybe toilet-wise, it's slightly smaller. Actually, toilet, it's not very important lah. So most of the time, people are okay with this. But the downer is actually this one. Okay, number one is all the 3-bedder, like I mentioned, is lake facing, right? So if you are lake facing, generally you want like a full unblocked view. But this one, because the aircon latch is over here, so all this window will be what? It will be half window, and half window means what? Maybe the view will be slightly more blocked, sunlight maybe cannot come in so much as compared to maybe the master room over here. So that is the down part of C1. Now let's look at the 3-bed premium. Of course, if let's say you have a tighter budget, but you are a bigger family usually have many kids, right? Sometimes you need to have like storage area, you know, or maybe you have a helper that you need to accommodate her into additional room and things like that. Then you might be looking into this because it actually has a yard, a third WC, and a storeroom. So let me highlight to you what's what are the things that I like about this floor plan? Number one is, okay, same thing, the wardrobe is actually tucked at one side. Master bedroom is actually very big. Look at here, you actually get your vanity table space. In fact, you can actually put massage chair over here or change it to maybe a gaming room or gaming table or something like that. Okay, on top of that, the toilet wise, okay, you realize that both toilet actually come, actually all three toilets comes with window, but this one, they don't have the window. So I think these are the better point, right? Of course, it also comes with a storeroom. So if you have a lot of storage, you might need that. If you have a bigger family, and having a yard will be so important to you. Okay, now let's look at 3-bed premium. Okay, so for go back to C1. C1 is over here, looking out to the lake view, and C2 as well, they are all looking out to the lake view area. Okay, so for 3-bedder premium plus study, there are 84 units of them in total and 3 different layouts. Okay, it's separated into C3S, C4S and C5S. I can straight away tell you, right, my favorite will be C5S. This one, if you've seen my video on it before, I've actually went down to the show flat and I mentioned to you that this extra wall, it is the most interesting thing, because if you don't need a study room, you can hack it down and you can actually create a wide frontage, which is very attractive in today's market. A lot of time, wide frontage only available for 4 and 5-bedder. 3-bedder with wide frontage is usually slightly more rare, and most of the time people like to come into the house, right, and straight away they will see a very, very big living hall. So that is something that is very, very attractive. What's more is actually the master bedroom, right, over here, you actually have a full L shape of window, allowing more lights to come in, and on top of that, you still have another window here. So if this is where you position your bed, wow, actually there is a lot more lights coming into your master bedroom, creating an illusion of a much bigger one, a much bigger master bedroom. So if you have a bit more budget and if you can stretch, right, I would totally say go for C5S. For C3S and C4S is if, let's say, you need like an extra study area, or you want to convert that into a helper room because you need a storeroom to store stuff, you still need a proper helper room and all. I think it would be good for you to actually look at this, because it actually comes with a study room. But this study room is not so flexible because it's not located right next to the living room, whereby you can't do anything about it, but it has to be a room. Either it's a study room, storeroom, helper room, or an additional wardrobe room. So there's lesser flexibility, but you still get an additional study room, which actually most of the Singaporeans these days, if they buy this, it usually is either the study room or helper's room lah. But between C3S and C4S, I will still choose C3S, because in terms of layout, they are actually almost identical. The only thing that is bigger here is actually the foyer area, which you technically don't really need that space. So for me, it will be C5, C3, and then C4 for the 3-bedder premium plus study. Okay, next is the selection. So for 3-bedder and 3-bedder premium plus study selection. So if let's say you have a little bit more budget constraint, my suggested stack is actually to go for the C1. It is only at 936 square feet. It is actually much smaller than the next jump 1098 square feet. And that itself will usually save you around maybe 300,000 already. So if you are a younger couple, you don't need that big of a space, just go ahead to C1. And if you have a budget constraint, but maybe you're a bigger family, you need a storage room or helper room, etc., then my suggestion is for you to go into C2, which is the 1098 square feet. So if you do not have any budget constraint, my take is for you to go directly into C5. Alright, C5 is 1195. It is the one that I mentioned that you can actually remove the study room and convert it into a wider frontage, because next time there might be a wider pool of buyers looking at it in the resale market. At the same time, you can actually have a very impressive living hall. So I think if you don't have any budget constraint, my take is to go into that. Besides that, master bedroom will also be very, very bright because of all the windows. So that is actually my take for the 3-bedder and 3+ study. Finally, let's dive into the 4 and 5-bedder, which I will be doing a summary of it all together, but let's look at the 4-bedder first. So for the 4-bedder and 5-bedder, they only have one stack each with one layout each at only 18 units. Very, very, very rare in supply. Okay, so now let's look at the side map. Okay, so this is actually where the 4-bedder is located, D1. It's again lake facing, and we are actually at the stack with a higher block, which is all the way until level 20. In terms of layout, okay, it's the 4-bed luxury. It's much bigger than a lot of 4-bedder out there, which is around 1,000, 2,003 square feet. We are looking at 1,528 square feet, pure luxury, facing the lake view. Okay, so for the In terms of floor plan wise, I just need to highlight 2 points which I like the most. Number one is of course the wider frontage, whereby you get your living room here, your dining room here, and then your balcony is the full view of the lake, okay, and also private lift. It comes with private lift. I will be touching a lot on the wide frontage layout and private lift as we go along, okay. And then of course you actually have the second emergency exit, which is at the yard area. So coming in straight away, you will have your bedroom. This is one of the common bedroom. This is your master room with a walk-in wardrobe. Alright, and then this is your another common room with a wardrobe tucked at one side, bigger room space, and then you have your junior master. Okay, so not all 4-bedder actually has junior master as well. Junior master meaning to say you have your own ensuite bathroom. Okay, so now let's look at supply in this area and why supply is very important. Okay, so we are talking about wide frontage layout right now. Okay, wide frontage layout, which is the one that I've been mentioning in all my videos as well. Okay, so looking at wide frontage layout, right? We are looking at 1,003 and above. We only have 84 units in the whole of District 22. And if you are looking at 1,003 and above, which is ours, with private lift, you are only looking at 73 units, which is very, very exclusive in the whole of District 22. And if you realize, right, the other two that has private lift with 1,300 square feet and above, they are actually Jadon and Lake Garden Residences, which they actually just launched last year. From here, actually, I do see a trend. Maybe it's a thing that, you know, nowadays more people are more into this kind of luxury lifestyle. They do like this kind of concept of having like a private lift that take you directly to your place. I mean, developers are quite smart. Usually, if they spot this kind of trend, then they will start to do and develop more of units that are like that. That's why maybe Jadon, Lake Garden Residences, and then now Sora, they have this kind of 4-bedder with more of the wide frontage with private lift. But having said that, it is still very rare. We only have 73 units of it in the whole of District 22. Alright, now let's look at 5-bedder. 5-bedder again, okay, it's actually denoted at this deck over here. Again, lake facing, we are also of a higher block itself. In terms of layout, it is very similar to the 4-bedder. Again, we are very lucky that we have the wide frontage here and also the private lift. The only additional thing, of course, is just an additional room because this one is 5-bedder. Same thing, we only have 18 units of it. Okay, very, very rare. Let's look at the supply again. So now we are looking at the supply of 5-bedder with wide frontage layout, okay, in District 22. Wide frontage itself, right, you have like maybe the Lake Garden Residences, Lakeville, Lake Grande, and these are all not very old projects. In total, you only have 35 units with 5-bedroom. And 5-bedroom with private lift, even more rare. Only Lake Garden Residences, 38. And then for Sora now 38, so total only 36 units in the whole of District 22. So we've been talking about supply and supply and supply. So what happens when there is very little supply or when it's very rare? Alright, so now let's go to our case study. First case study, we will be looking at Tampines area, as you can see here. Okay, we will be touching on Treasure at Tampines. Okay, so a lot of time, let's look at the supply itself. So Treasure at Tampines, TOP 2023, we only have 110 units of 5-bedder, which a lot of people say at that point in time a lot. But then looking at the surrounding, right, Moderna don't have 5-bedder, My Manhattan don't have 5-bedder. You only have East Point Green, which is a really, really old project, and they only have 8 units of 5-bedder. Meaning to say that Treasure at Tampines is really quite rare because they are the only one around the area that has 110 units. Then during that period of time, a lot of people will ask, wow, Tampines got people will buy 5-bedder, man. It can afford. Who will buy 5-bedder? You know, and things like that, right? So now let's look at our statistics. Before we get to the statistics, just let me share with you, in Property Guru currently, right, the amount of 5-bedder that is available for sale at Treasure Tampines, we have 110 units. But right now, only 13 units are for sale. And of which 13 units, there might be duplicated listing of the same listing, meaning to say about 11% for sale. What does that show you? It shows you that actually not many people that buy 5-bedder, right, they want to sell. A lot of time when you buy in a 5-bedder, it's more for own stay. You finally get the product after 3 or 4 years of wait. You won't want to sell that immediately. That's why it explains there's only 13 units available for sale. So now let's see the profit it make. Treasure profit. Okay, so these are the latest profit. You are looking at 5-bedder, got people will buy, man. And let me show you, really got people will buy. And the profit that you're looking at is close to 981,000, 667,000, 673,000, and this one further back 584,000. So these are the kind of profit that you are looking at. Okay, now if you don't believe the Treasure Tampines or Tampines case study, now let me bring you to another area, and this area I will be a bit more familiar as well because I used to stay there. Okay, so basically in the whole Marymount area, right, for Jadescape, TOP in 2023, for 5 beta type, their 5 beta is much bigger. It's about 2099 square feet, only 39 units of them. But let's look at the surrounding project. Okay, Marymount View don't have 5 beta. Season View, Boon View, they are actually very old projects, don't have 5 beta. This one don't have 5 beta. The only 5 beta that you have is Xingming Plaza, which is a very old project that TOP in 1996. So you can see that actually there is no supply there, only Jadescape and only 39 units of them. And right now there are only 4 units available for sale. So again, it's similar, about 10% available for sale. Because why? Not many people want to sell it, right? But for Jadescape, there's another issue. Why? Is because it's surrounded. If you cannot already see over here, they are all landed. So I think when we were selling Jadescape that time, a lot of people will be asking, 5 beta, you know, at that point in time, I think it's around 5.4 mil, that sort of range. Got people buy, man, you top up a little bit, you can actually buy freehold landed. Now let me show you the profit that Jadescape made first. My goodness. On 18 October, already crossed $1 million. So got people will buy 5 beta or not? Got. Okay, so now this will be very interesting. Okay, because like I mentioned, there's a lot of landed in this area, right? But we look at this. This is actually 98 Pemimpin. It's a terrace house. It is a freehold. Okay, it is actually over here. PSF is 2582. Okay, I believe likely this PSF means that it's a newly built lah. So you are looking at a $4.338 million freehold landed. And if it's a new build, maybe the whole build-up itself might be about 3,000 plus square feet already, much bigger than the Jadescape 5 beta, right? And then the other one, let's take into consideration 30 Jalan Pintau. This one, the PSF is much lower, 1668. Usually, I think people is buying this for rebuild lah. So if you add another maybe $1 million for renovation and things like that, usually nowadays will be slightly more than 1 million. So you're looking at about 4.4 million. Okay, but you look at this, one is 4.33, one is 4.4 million. It's around the same price as Jadescape 5 beta, but Jadescape still got people sell at 4.55 million. So can buy or not? Actually can buy, because not everybody likes landed. Okay, take me for example, I don't really like landed. If I can, I will actually go for a condo as well. Okay, some people don't like landed maybe because like, you know, pest issue. They don't want to maintain the whole house by themselves. They want to just live in a place whereby it's already maintained nicely for them already. So whether got people will buy 5 beta, yes, there will be. Every product has their own target audience one. Okay, so based on this case study, let's look at this. Okay, if the supply is really very low, like, you know, for Jadescape 5 beta, only 30 plus unit, very low supply. Demand is also not very high, because not every other week or every other month there will be a buyer that pop up that say, oh, I want 5 beta, you know, in maybe Marymount and things like that. But it also fetch you a very good profit. You're talking about like crossing $1 million over here. Okay, so what happened is, for example, if there are 2 buyers, they are looking for 5 beta, and then 6 months there is no supply, because when you buy 5 beta, usually you buy for own stay, right? And you won't want to sell that fast. So suddenly there is a unit that pop up. What will happen? 2 buyers or 2 groups of buyers will be snatching for that one particular unit. How can the price not be good, right? So that explains the slides above. So next up and finally, let's discuss, is it really good to have private lift? Like I mentioned earlier on, private lift, it has its pros and its cons, right? So what I think is that probably developer already, you know, found a trend that, oh, nowadays maybe more people are more modernized, they want to have a little bit of luxury, want to show off to their friends if you are staying in maybe a 4 or 5 beta. That's why you realize that the newer projects like maybe Lake Garden Residences, Jadon and all, they will have bigger, you know, type with wide frontage layout and also with private lift. So there is pros and cons. Pros is definitely, of course, it's more exclusive lah. Not everybody can say, oh, my house got private lift, right? So cons, let's look at it. So let's take this case study as example, the Mayfair. It's quite an older condo, and if you realize, it's very interesting because only 1 beta do not have a private lift. 2 beta all the way to 4 beta, they have private lift, and in total there are about 13 private lift, excluding the common lift. And if you add in the common lift, right, you are looking at about 17 lift. That's a lot of leaf to maintain, okay? So it's quite crazy. So I have heard from my colleagues that they go into this project, they don't really have a very good impression, that's one. And second is a lot of their leaf are breaking down because it's getting older. Once you cross the 10-year mark, 15-year or 20-year, that's where a lot of wear and tear start to happen. And if your project itself, sinking fund, do not have enough to cover, that's when they will ask everybody, hey, you know, we need to repair the leaf, you need to come up with, you know, how much, and things like that. And not everybody will want to pay, right? So if let's say everybody opt out, they don't want to pay, and then the leaf will just be very faulty and old and worn out lor. So that is what happened at the Mayfair, unfortunately. So maintenance fee is very important. But before that, we look at the performance of the Mayfair. If you realize the 4-bedder, okay, when we are talking about 4-bedder these days, we talk about, you know, the 2-point-something mil to the 3 mil mark. But look at this 4-bedder, wow, very affordable because you are only looking at 1.37, 1.68. Why is it still so low? Like there's no growth at all. And a lot of time has got to do with the maintenance and feeling for resale. Because if you are going there for resale, you have option. You don't need to just buy the Mayfair. You have other units, you know, near the Mayfair like Park Oasis and things like that for comparison, right? So if you go in, you see that the leaf is breaking down, this is breaking down, that is breaking down, and then even if the maintenance is very cheap, right, every month, you also won't want to buy into this project one because the feeling that they give you, it's not very good, right? So in the end, of course, for the Mayfair, they never really maintain the leaf because maybe sinking fund is not enough. So usually for units that sell at a very good price, most of the time is when the unit is very well maintained. So for example, I can just tell you this, number one, Principal Garden. Every single time when I bring my clients over the Principal Garden, everybody loves it. The maintenance fee is not its cheapest, but everything is very well maintained. And every time when they see between Principal Garden and the Crest, most of the time they will always go for the one that is well maintained. Even if the unit itself is not very well maintained, they always tell me they can do a renovation, they can do an ID, but the project maintenance is very important. So now let's bring you to the final slide of the day. Maintenance fee for Sora. Honestly speaking, a lot of people were complaining or discussing about Sora maintenance fee. Let's face the truth, it's not the cheapest. In fact, it's actually quite high. Sora 3-bedder, you are looking at about, it's 532 lah, but about 530 terms of maintenance fee. And average 3-bedder out there, you are looking at 300 plus. So our extra is actually 200 per month, okay? But let's break it down. So 200 per month, for 1 year, you are looking at about additional 2,400 a year. A lot of people will feel very painful, like, wow, I'm paying so much, you know, for the maintenance fee. But if I go another project, maybe I can pay $200 lesser, okay? And usually you won't stay there for a short while. Maybe let's say you stay there for 5 years and you're looking at 12,000. But like what I mentioned earlier in this slide, right, a lot of time the units are sold at a good price if let's say the project is well maintained. So if your project is well maintained, do you think you can sell 12,000 more? You easily can cover this amount. A well maintained project can elevate the sales price easily. Number one, you have more people coming, more people liking, and the amount of chances that you can actually call a higher price is super high. So we shouldn't just look at, you know, Sora in terms of, you know, like the maintenance fee is very high. Number one, maintenance fee is very high, so that you'll be assured that your 4-bedder and a 5-bedder leaf is actually very well maintained. And second is next time for the resale market, when people come in to look at your project, they will actually like it more. And this $12,000 easily they will be able to cover it already. Alright, so that's all for today. We've come to the end of the analysis. I think I've done quite an in-depth analysis from 1-bedder all the way to 5-bedder. Of course, I think on that day itself, when you are at the show flat or at the booking day, a lot of time, you know, you might be having a hard time comparing all this kind of different projects or different stack, and most of the time you probably need an agent out there to be able to help you with it. So here is my contact. You can just reach out directly to me to arrange a viewing to view this very beautiful Sora. Alright, we'll see you again at the next analysis.